and the areas on the eastern side. So it looks like you'll be getting quite a lot of rain rates coming through there shortly along that I-77 corridor and I-20. Lots of rain there in that area as this storm pulls in. You can even see the center of the storm maybe even more clearly from this radar angle, and it looks like it is literally making landfall within possibly minutes in that area. Let's check back with that webcam. Quite a lot of rain rates coming through there, which is actively under a tornado warning right now, which is in effect for the next few minutes. I didn't see how long it was for. It is in effect until the end of the hour, and it was issued 5 minutes ago. A live view right now looking towards that tornado warned zone, so keep your eyes peeled on the skies there. And if we just take off that radar for a moment and change the camera settings to make the clouds a little bit clearer. There we go.
I think we might have landfall before that tornado warning goes up.
We might. It's getting very, very close, with the storm making an unexpected northwestward jog, and a prolonged one as well, which might have just brought it into landfall. If the National Hurricane Center issue a special advisory for that landfall, we'll bring it straight to you live. But just for the moment right now, we are looking at an area that is actively under a tornado warning, which is at Sunset Beach. Keep looking out there for a possible westward tornado jog here. And that's literally right on top of a radar site as well. Although being right on top of the radar site isn't particularly helpful always, because sometimes it can be too close. But you can see that cloud mass moving onwards. Just looking for any signs of the rotation here, and I think it's, oh yes, it's just, I'm not sure, coming onshore, I think. That potential tornadic signature. So Ocean Isle Beach, possibly a waterspout visible that might be moving onto land. But just keep watching these clouds here. This is live from Sunset Beach, which is just west of Ocean Isle Beach and very close to this tornado warning. I imagine if there was to be a tornado on the ground, you'll end up seeing it pass in the distance on this camera in a few moments. If there is one, there's no guarantee that there is, but obviously in this area, take cover immediately for a possible tornado here. That's the first tornado warning of the day in this area. I don't know if it's the first tornado warning at all. I think it is, yeah, the first tornado warning today anywhere in the US. But this is a live look in that tornado warning right now as it draws closer. And you'll see that tornado warned storm pass from right to left on this screen, I think.
Nathan, Tim and Patrick want to be pulled up.
Oh, they're here.
Yeah, they're finally here.
All right, we'll get them on here. So we're going to introduce two more of our members, Tim and Patrick. You're on the air as we watch this tornado warning from Sunset Beach.
Nathan. Yeah, Nathan, that is a decent, strong velocity couplet just to the southeast of the radar, and I wouldn't be surprised if something's down with it.
Yeah, that's what I thought when I was looking at that. It's hard to see on that radar so close to it, but you can see what's happening. It's faulty as well, this radar, I think, with the velocity. Oh, is there even two signatures now? I can't quite tell. But just hold on here as we keep looking at this zone for this tornado warning. Right near these marshes, which are inundated in water now. They are well underneath the water line, mostly. You can just see tops of it peeking out. That storm surge at this location has probably risen about 5.5 feet since the early hours. Tim, you're on the air from North Carolina. obviously one of our team members. What's your latest thoughts as you look at it now?
Well, Nathan, we kind of had a feeling that the model guidance and NFC forecast was going to shift a little bit further east, which it has. Here in Fayetteville, we're in between a few rain bands. We have had some gusty winds here, pushing about 30 miles an hour. Not quite tropical storm force as of yet, but so far it's been business as usual. As far as I know, all of the normal services are still up and running. Friends and family have been checking on us, making sure we're okay. So overall, it's been not too bad. But if that northward track continues, we'll probably be getting the worst up in this area, probably in about the next 5 or 6 hours.
But it appears in the last hour or two that it's taken a northwesterly jog, and it might be making landfall about now, imminently. We are still looking at this view from Sunset Beach, which is under a tornado warning, and we'll be looking towards the tornado warned storm in a moment. So keep looking out for that potential for a tornado or waterspout in this area. Take cover if you are there. This is Force 13 Live, and it looks like Hurricane Ian is going to make landfall in maybe even minutes, but probably before the 2 p.m. advisory.
Yeah, this particular tornado warning is so close to the radar. It's less than 8 miles, so it's going to be really hard for us to be able to determine a couplet or anything at the as close to the radar it is. I'm looking through all tilts, and I'm not seeing anything right now unless that rotation has weakened as it's coming on shore.
Interesting. And this is the first one today, so I guess it'll be curious to see exactly how this behaves when it moves over land, and it might be a sign of things to come, whatever happens. We're still looking from this camera. Anytime now is probably when the potential tornado will pass the camera. That tornado warning still in effect, and we have several flash flood warnings all around Charleston right now. And Tim, you probably know Charleston better than me, so what are you thinking about that area right now? Deep in flood warnings there.
A few coworkers that used to live down in that area. It is definitely a very historical city. There are some areas that are below sea level in a couple of these spots. So would not be surprised if the Charleston Harbor area is not heavily inundated. Pretty sure the port down there is closed for the day due to the strong winds and the flooding potential. So right now, Charleston
Look on our image right now, Tim. Is that a possible funnel over there on the left side, or is that just something else?
I'm
not an expert on these things. So
yeah, it's kind of hard to tell because it's in the distance, but I don't see like any base lowering there on that left side.
This area under a tornado warning right now, so we are keeping our eyes peeled for a possible tornado here at Sunset Beach. The first tornado warning of the day. We'll keep looking for it for a few more minutes or until that warning expires. But right now that warning in effect until I think it was the end of the hour, so quite a while yet. Watching a lot of clouds moving over there, and rain has actually let up at this location by the looks of things. The visibility was very poor earlier when we were looking at it, but the storm surge as well, Tim, I would estimate at least 5 feet at this location. Are you surprised?
Not at all. I mean, we knew Ian was going to re-intensify a little bit and would bring a storage threat to the area. So no, not at all. I mean, anywhere from Bald Head Island all the way down, probably into Charleston, and maybe down to Tybee Island in Georgia. Those areas are probably going to be the heaviest hit with the storm surge threat.
That far south.
I wouldn't roll it out. I mean, you figure we got landfall probably near Pawleys Island, Murray's Inlet, Surfside Beach, and we know hurricanes can have a very strong influence on the wave action in this area. So it would not surprise me.
Looking at radar right now, it would suggest to me that the potential tornado will cross this screen in a matter of maybe 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, and even going according to the graphics that the NHC has, Nathan, 1 to 2 feet from the Volusia County line up to the Savannah River, 2 to 4 from the Savannah River up to the Isle of Palms,
Yep.
4 to 7 from the Isle of Palms to the Little River Inlet, and then 3 to 5 for the Little River Inlet over to the Cape Fear River, which that exits out at Wilmington, 2 to 4 from Cape Fear all the way up to Duck. This includes the Pimlico Sound and the Neuse River, and then 1 to 2 feet for the Albemarle Sound. So yeah, I mean, storm surge all up and down the entire coast of the Carolinas, Georgia, and northern Florida.
Interesting looking at these clouds right now, Tim. The base is almost to the ground in the distance there. Obviously a large area, but...
Yeah, it looks like it might be, but I'm not seeing anything on radar that would lead me to think that we got something on the ground.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not seeing anything on radar either. But there's the view live from Sunset Beach. And I believe right now there's also been issued someone in the comments said there was a tornado watch that's been issued, but I'm not seeing it yet.
Let me check on that for you. And we actually, I'm looking back through some of the reports here, Nathan. We actually have had a tropical storm force wind report generated in this area. The regional airport here reporting a wind gust. Yes, wind gust of 43 miles per hour reported at the regional airport about 10 o'clock, right when our team went live.
In Fayetteville.
Yes.
All right. Marlene says that radar is looking like landfall is happening now. And I agree. I think landfall is happening now. But I think we're just going to keep looking at this tornado warning first. It's more important, in my view. But for those of you who were looking at our discussion or watching our discussion earlier, we were speculating that landfall was very close and it could be declared by the next hour from the National Hurricane Center. They may issue a special advisory, or they might wait until the 2 p.m. intermediate, depending on how they feel about the urgency. I don't know if there is a criteria for calling a landfall at the exact time versus waiting for the next advisory, but we'll see what they say and when they might say it.
Okay, so, Nathan, we do have a confirmation on that tornado watch. I've actually sent an image of it to you. Had to get it off of the Iowa Mesonet. But it is primarily for all of eastern North Carolina, including the Outer Banks and southwestern Virginia. This is going to stay... This will stay in effect until 10 p.m. tonight.
Lots of areas under tornado watches right now. The North Carolina counties included are Beaufort, Brunswick, Chowan, Cumberland, Duplin, Greene, Hyde, Lenoir, New Hanover, Pamlico, Perkiman. Is it Perkimon? Sampson, Wayne, Bertie, Camden, Columbus, Currituck, Edgecombe, Halifax, Johnston, Martin, Northampton, Pasquotank, Pitt, Tyrrell, Wilson, Bladen, Carteret, Craven, Dare, Gates, Hartford, Jones, Nash, Onslow, Pender, Robeson, and Washington counties. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's pretty much the eastern part of the state. And yes, Cumberland is my home county. So yeah, I am now under a tornado watch.
You too. All right.
Yes.
And I can see it in some in some counties of Virginia as well, as you said, but I can't. I've not got the text to read them off, but some counties on the east coast of southeast part of North Carolina, of Virginia, also in that. So I reckon we might have. I just wonder whether that. I think that tornado, if it was there, will have passed this camera at this point. That tornado warning is still in effect, and I'll keep an eye on this camera in case anything changes. But now let's go back to the latest radar imagery and zoom out. This radar, I think, is in a little bit of a dead zone. So let's switch to the... what do you reckon, Tim? Columbia or... No, I don't really want...
Probably Columbia or Raleigh are going to be the next two closest ones. Obviously, the Wilmington radar is like right over the top of this couplet. So we're not going to get a great view on it.
All right, so this actually covers a good view of Charleston area as well, which is getting whacked right now if you look at this camera, this radar site. Florence as well, getting a lot of that. Sumter as well, getting really heavy rainfall there, some of the reds in that area. But the bigger question is the storm making landfall, question mark? And that is a big question. I will place the center of it now, probably here. It's hard to see on that radar, but it's getting very close to land. It could even be a little bit further in, actually. Hold on. There is cause to possibly say that the eye could be there even, and that would be inland. Let's see if we can... We'll have to check the other radar from near Jacksonville. And of course it's broken. We need to know here. We can't have the software breaking. We'll have to try again in a moment. But Columbia radar suggests that it might have made landfall here. We're about to check the one near Jacksonville. And
looking
satellite imagery would suggest it's really close, within a couple of miles maybe.
That's what I'm getting, Nathan. Just looking at the radar loop out of Charleston, I'm showing that the eye is still offshore.
I don't know.
Barely.
I don't know. Look at this. This is from near Jacksonville, showing the eye in the process of making landfall right now. And I would, therefore, between those two radars, put it here. And that would be a landfall. I think I'm confident enough to declare that, Tim. And I reckon that is a landfall here that has now occurred. And where is that exactly? I think that is right on top of Georgetown Lighthouse, over some marshland just east of Georgetown. I'm not sure if that area has a name. But very close to Georgetown, just to the east. I think that is a landfall, Tim.
I'll look at a couple other radars here, see if we can...
Let's actually take that off and look at the composite radar and see what that says. It's not quite as clear, but composite suggests landfall as well, actually. A little bit further south, though. Composite suggests landfall has just occurred near... over more marshland, actually, on the border between Georgetown and Charleston County. What's that? The South Santee River. So that shows landfall right on the mouth of the South Santee River. So whether it's Georgetown Lighthouse or the South Santee River, there's a few miles between, but I'm pretty sure at this point, Tim, that this has made landfall.
I would definitely agree, Nathan. It's just trying to figure out exactly
Yeah.
where, yeah. Because the radar composite I mean, the eye is really clear within the last hour, and then it looks like it started to degrade as it moved inland. Because the radar I'm looking at looks like this did make landfall probably just east of McClellanville, at least what the Charleston radar is hinting at.
Junjun Villarreal says, do you think the invest off of Africa will form? Yes, I do. Daniel Cook says, I'm in Georgetown. We've had gusts around 90 and one recorded at 87 around 11. The river is out my back door. No doubt my stepmom's house is going to flood, he says. Probably. Storm surge will be pretty much at the top now as the storm makes landfall in that location. So definitely hunker down. NC says, will Hilton Head High... Oh dear, I can't speak. Will Hilton Head Island and Beaufort, South Carolina get any major effects?
Hilton Head. Let me see with it.
At this point in time, I would imagine that they are going to stay out.
They're on the south side of the storm, so they are getting some impacts.
Major, though, I would say no.
No, they're probably getting some tropical storm force conditions at the very least.
Oh, why am I drawing lines? This thing's broken in. Yeah, so it looks pretty clear here that the storm has made landfall. It happened much more quickly than we expected. Last night and even early this morning when I was looking at it, Tim, I thought we might still be looking at a landfall not until about 4 or 5 o'clock this afternoon. But here we are, not even 1 o'clock, and it looks like we've got landfall. We will wait for the National Hurricane Center to confirm. I can't imagine they'll wait another hour before calling landfall officially, although they can, but I think they'll issue an update statement.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they were doing hourly updates, but I could see them issuing
No,
something
they're
at the top of the hour. Oh, they're not issuing hourly? Wow.
No, they stopped that as soon as it left Florida, actually. That's
probably something if I'm the NHC I would not have done. I mean, this was still a U.S. threat. I would have kept doing the hourly updates. That's just my opinion, though.
Don't know. Let's take a look at another camera here in Charleston, South Carolina. And you can see here, this is at the end of Interstate 526, is it, I think? Mile marker 10. Which I think is the end of it, which is funny. A mile marker that starts at 10. But anyway, you can see there, underneath that overpass, there is some surface water gathering. A little bit of flooding going on. This is, I assume, yep, this is well under the flash flood warning right now. So this is one viewpoint that we're looking at. I haven't seen much flooding on any of these these Charleston cameras, Tim, although that doesn't mean to say that there isn't flooding going on, because we're mainly looking at interstates and a lot of them are elevated. So we haven't had the chance to look that much at smaller roads and in the center of the city. So we've heard that several roads have been closed now due to flooding in the downtown of Charleston, and we're seeing gathering water here as well on the west side. It's very odd outlines around there as well. Is that real? Like there's like tiny little sections of neighborhoods. Some of them are in Charleston County and some of them are not. All around the west side. But that's just a little.
As big as Charleston is, it's very possible.
Start your message with Force 13 all in text if you want to send us any thoughts you have, or indeed any questions that we'll take live on the air. We're also running a live phone-in, which anyone can join at their request on our Discord server, discord.gg/force13. If you want to take part in any way, Let us know how the conditions are at your place. If you were anywhere near the storm in Florida, of course, we'll want to hear from you on that as well. But only if it's safe to do so. If you are caught in the middle of this storm right now, you probably have better priorities. But we would love to hear from anyone who is able to tell us what the conditions are in their neck of the woods, because it may also help other people who want to know more information about certain areas. But this is a live view in the western side of Charleston right now, which is beginning to flood. And when we look at the radar imagery, which I'll bring back up on the... oh, look at that, a vehicle going straight through some surface water there on that off slip. So quite clearly more water there than it shows. You can barely see it there until the vehicle goes right through it like it did then. But most people driving cautiously, which is what we want to see. I've not seen, to be honest, through this whole storm, Tim, I've only seen a couple of people going a little bit fast and no one driving recklessly.
In these heavy rains, you really don't want to be driving at normal highway speeds.
Madness says, is the storm heading due west? If so, it's ignoring the cone. Well, it's jogging west. It definitely has done that. And looking at latest radar, Tim, I think it's actually jogging back north again. It's right on the coast. I don't know whether to say this is a landfall or not, but it is right on the coast, depending on which radar site you're looking at.
Yeah, I'm using Charleston, and I am running back through this loop, trying to pin it down. If
Adderite says the latest recon pass seems to have found the center still over water, though not by much, so you might want to check that out.
Yeah, I'm looking at this radar loop from Charleston, Nathan, and if I'm pinning this center down, I've got it just off the shore of Cape Island, South Carolina, near McClellanville.
Yeah.
And it's probably just like literally offshore, so another jog to the west would give it landfall. If it goes north, it's going to miss Cape Island and probably make landfall in Cane Island, just to the northeast of it. So this is in a spot where, unless this thing tries to go and pull a crazy northeast curve, which we know it's not going to do, or tries to go back east, we're looking at a landfall here shortly.
Cane Island. How ironic. Hurricane Island now, it would seem. But this storm looking like it's going to be moving, jogging northwards perhaps right now by the looks of the radar from Colombia. And landfall is imminent. That Cane Island, by the way, that one's near Georgetown, isn't it?
Cane Island is to the east of McClellanville. It is literally right next to the South Santee River.
Right. Okay, that's further south.
And just like and literally like maybe a mile and a half south of Georgetown Lighthouse. So it's right in that area.
Yeah, because Georgetown Lighthouse is quite far away from Georgetown itself.
Yeah, it is. Georgetown Lighthouse is... Let me write a quick few numbers here. About 14 miles from the town of Georgetown proper.
We saw another vehicle go through some water there. You'll see it on that slip road on the bottom of the image. And I think the vehicles do a loop around there on that junction, and they go back over the overpass on the right hand side. But that's the view there at the beginning of Interstate 526 on the west side of Charleston. Christian says, I'm just sheltering in place at home. My area is getting rain and wind. I'm still checking regularly the National Hurricane Center in case they issue a update statement, which is possible. Kate says, what do you think Charlotte, North Carolina will see in terms of impact? Now, I saw earlier, Tim, that they were going for maybe 3 or 4 inches of rain. Still a high chance of tropical storm conditions, but maybe lower end.
That seems very reasonable. I mean, Charlotte is on the western side of the state, but we've seen Ian's one profile that it goes out almost 150 miles in all directions. So as Ian does move inland, yeah, we're gonna see tropical storm force conditions all the way over into the Charlotte area, considering how far away it will be from the actual main center of Ian.
And a reminder of that National Hurricane Center forecast cone, even on their latest advisory at 11 a.m., that first S position is the 8 p.m. position. So if you sort of try and find that landfall zone in the middle of it, then it was probably still suggesting maybe around 4 p.m. And here we are at barely 1 o'clock, and we're considering whether to pull the trigger on a landfall. I think, well, I sort of already said it, but having seen more recent radar imagery, I think it is still just off the coast. Let's look back at that radar and show you what we're looking at. So it would appear, for all the world right now, that the center is at this point here, which is extremely close as it can be to making landfall. And that, as you just said there before, is just east of McClellanville, which is under a flash flood warning, and Georgetown just up there. It's mostly marshland, this area, that it will be making landfall on, and no doubt there'll be a heavy surge in that location as well.
Yeah, that area is marshland. There's a wildlife refuge there. There is Cape Roman Lighthouse, Sandy Point Beach, and Cape Island in this area. And you have a couple more coastal reserves east of McClellanville up to Cane Island, where the South Santee River empties out. So that's
No
just a
doubt there'll
little
be a
bit
heavy
of the
surge in
lay of
that
the land
location as
where
well.
we're seeing Ian make, and I would say it's an imminent landfall. There's
Oh,
there's nowhere else it can go. It's going to
No.
have to make a landfall.
Yeah. Looking back at this Charleston camera as we take some more questions, Adderite says Sunset Beach tornado warning has expired. Caleb says we're having some yard flooding and semi-full ditches in Gates / Pasquotank counties. And a few comments of thanks there as well, and that's what we're here for. It's what we do. Regular updates on all storms around the world as we see them. Wendy says that there's noticeable ponding going on atop the grass, as you can see there on this image. I wonder if we can zoom it out slightly so we can see more of that picture. You'll see every so often, the rain rate seems to be even higher now. You'll see some vehicles passing on the bottom side of the road there. There's a little pond on that side as well, actually. And they're going through water as they go by. You'll see some of them going a little bit faster than they maybe should, and they you see massive water going from either side of the car. But you can see clearly increasing amounts of ponding over that grass area underneath that highway bridge. And you'll also see on the right hand side, just near the corner of the frame, you can see wind blowing that rain along there as well. So usually when you see that, winds are getting up towards tropical storm, well, in tropical storm strength probably. There's another vehicle crashing through that water, and looks like he's just turned off the road there, I think. But that's a live view right now from Charleston, probably the best that we can get. There's another one going straight through that. And clearly it's getting a lot wetter in this area. This is Force 13 Live. We're going to be staying on the air for a while yet. I'm not sure how long we're staying today. Whether we might catch our breath and take a longer break than we have done in other days. But we're here now for the time being, and we're waiting for possibly an update statement from the National Hurricane Center where they will declare a landfall whenever they think it has actually done that. But right now it's just spinning around, pirouetting almost, and landfall must surely be a matter of minutes away, near Georgetown Lighthouse is what I'm saying. What I'm seeing. The strength of the storm is still up at around 85 miles per hour sustained with higher gusts. And it's got a pressure estimate of 980 millibars, but I believe Recon has indicated 977 or 978.
So, yeah.
So on its way to ramping up again, and there are indications this morning, Tim, that earlier on that it had possibly even turned post-tropical. But I think it fought back actually. I think it looked worse earlier on radar than it does now. I think it actually looks much better than it did earlier on radar. So I think it got its tropicality back if it ever lost it.
I can say that when we were looking at it right before we went off the air last night, the NHC actually categorized it as a hybrid cyclone, where it was tropical, but had some tropical characteristics, mainly because there was no convection on the southern side. Looking at it now, no, it definitely got its full tropical characteristics back. Just looking at the imagery that we've got on it now.
And you know what it's increasingly reminding me of since the Florida landfall? Hurricane Sandy. In its earlier stages, before it got the chance to really balloon up off the east coast of the United States.
It very well could be making that transition as it's making landfall. I mean, we saw Sandy do that and become a much stronger threat, which the NHC learned from that lesson to not discontinue advisories once it made landfall.
Well, it wasn't their fault. They wanted to, but their protocol, they weren't allowed to.
Yeah, they've amended that since, and anytime that is still a flooding threat, the Weather Prediction Center actually takes over the advisories once it's inland. So that is something in their protocol that they revised since Sandy. I think it was a great move that they did that.
Oh, yeah.
That way they
No-brainer.
can keep advisories going on it.
And here's a longer period. In fact, this is out of date now. Let's update that image, showing how the storm has progressed over most of today so far. And you can see there it's been fighting hard, almost losing it completely. And I thought at one point it was going to, but then getting it back a little bit just before landfall. Dangerous conditions across South and North Carolina right now. We still haven't seen that many tornado warnings, only the one so far this morning, but a tornado watch was issued earlier for a large part of eastern North Carolina. And there have been plenty of flash flood warnings for this area as well, for South Carolina, around Charleston particularly. There's been a major concern. Just checking some other cameras right now before I select one and that we can take a look at properly. But apart from the one that we were just looking at, I'm still not seeing any major areas of flooding. Granted, I can't see anything in the center of Charleston, but that's what I've been seeing. So let's go back to some of our other cameras, and this is a look back now at the camera at Sunset Beach, which is located just over the border in North Carolina, very close to Myrtle Beach, but right next to the border. And earlier on today, Tim, I doubt you've seen this yet, but if I was to go back through to this morning, this is 6 hours ago. What did it look like back then? There it is. And you can see all of that land and looks great. There's probably about, let's just fix that picture a little bit. It's a little bit drowned out. But changing camera settings just to enhance it so we can see everything better on each different camera view, and they're all different. So there it was earlier. So you see that right now, Tim?
I do, yes.
And let's go to the current view. All of that marshland is gone.
It's very similar to what we saw there with the Fort Myers Beach here, where at the start of the day we saw full beach and everything, and it was just completely inundated, and that's what we're seeing here with this camera.
That must be
Is
6 feet there, I would say.
easily.
We're only expecting 7 though, not like the 18 feet that we had in Florida.
Yeah. And I think I've got the eye of Ian relocated since it kind of got off the radar. We are looking at an imminent landfall near Cane Island. I've got it 3 miles away.
I've been saying that for half an hour.
Well, it looked like it jaunted west, and now it looks like it's taking more of a northwest-westerly track. So I'm definitely willing to say imminent landfall near Cane Island, South Carolina, probably in the next 20 minutes, give or take.
Oh, I don't know. It is right on the coast still right now. And I think, Tim, the more I look at this, and yeah, definitely in the last... It's trolling us. In the last half hour, it's taken a jog back towards the east, I think. Or northeast. I think it's taking a northeast jog, and it's still going northeast right now. So if it keeps going like that, it'll buy itself even more time and pass Georgetown before landfall.
Yeah, northeast. Yeah, if it stays on a northeast track. Let's see here.
Surely
Where
it
could we
can't. Please. We want this damn thing to be over with.
If it holds a true northeast path, it's gonna make landfall. If it goes more of a east-northeast, it could literally skirt the coastline and stay offshore.
But it can't do that for that. Like, surely going to turn back west soon.
It's we've seen hurricanes do crazier things, Nathan.
I know, that's why I don't like it. We'll show you some more images from Myrtle Beach shortly and see what the weather's like over there. That could be an area that gets a lot of wind from the storm. So we'll look there in just a moment. In fact, I think we're ready with one of the pictures now. There is a viewpoint from Myrtle Beach at this time. It's looking very dark and windy and rainy there. But it is still... yeah, a lot of that very dangerous seas out there that are still coming in. Let's check another viewpoint for Myrtle Beach. And there you can see the extent of the surge now. Some of it washing inland, well not inland, but in towards that path. And actually, yeah, maybe a little bit inland actually. Hard to tell there if there's a elevation difference. You can see a distant pier over there. And those waves looking quite menacing as the storm draws nearer to that area. But with the storm doing its little stall right now, right off North Santee and Cane Island, this is still about 45 or 40 miles from Myrtle Beach, and it hasn't moved very much in the last half hour.
No, it hasn't, Nathan. And yeah, it does seem like the eye or the center of Ian is just toying with us now. And we just wanted to mercifully make landfall and just get out of here.
Going back to the Charleston camera, and once again you can see those flooded areas underneath one of the overpasses, and actually if we zoom back out again, you can see one or two other areas that are starting to flood over further up that field as well. So I think very quickly that whole thing will start to get flooded soon. But right now, if you're just joining us, Hurricane Ian is on the verge of landfall imminently, within minutes, we think, depending on what Ian decides it wants to do. National Hurricane Center are holding off doing any kind of update advisory right now, and it might just turn out to be the storm might stall out a little bit longer, enough until the 2 p.m. advisory comes out, and then they might declare the landfall. But we are extremely close to landfall, and it looks like that landfall will occur very close to Cane Island or near North Santee, not far from Georgetown. Seeing one or two more cars ploughing through all of that water on the bottom part of the image. Some of them taking the time, like that one. Others going rather quicker and causing a splash. If you have got any comments or questions for us live on the air, you can start your message with Force 13 all in text. And you can join our phone in. We've got lines open here on our Discord server, discord.gg/Force13 if you want to take part. Or just join our community. You can talk to thousands of weather watchers and hurricane trackers in real time on there. And on the line right now, we have Brian, who has returned from Charleston. We're looking at a picture on the western side of town, but what's the perspective from your place?
I would definitely say we are in the eye wall here in west of the Ashley River, inside of Interstate 526. We are about 5-10 minutes ago. We had a large bang on the sky roof, on the sky window,
Wow.
in the family room. It's definitely flooding in our backyard. The street is flooding. This is an area that the street will, the gutters will flood normally, but it's into the streets. And I mean, there's a lot of debris in the roadway. I'm not going out for another walk with the dog. It's way too dangerous. Fire and EMS has suspended all of their operations for the county due to the storm because it's so extreme right now. They have suspended all EMS, all rescue. The fire department, from what I've been told, is the only department responding to anything as of right now. And looking at my barometer, pressure's down to 995. It's only down 1 bar since we last talked, but it's still coming in pretty strong. I mean, there's definitely large gusts we're getting every few minutes.
Yeah, and it's not going to go down anymore because the storm is starting to move away from you a little bit, but you are right in that big red band right now, which I guess you could sort of call, well, it's the closest thing to an eye wall that this storm has now, and you're in that, so it's battering that area.
So I have an update on departments that have ceased their operations. So the county EMS, the sheriff's office, and the Iowa Palms Fire Department. There were some chases that were out of Iowa Palms earlier. I'm assuming Sullivan's Island is as well. They are coastal. I'm guaranteeing Allendale Fire Department, which is that northerly county up towards Santee, that is Allendale, Clelandville, as well as Georgetown County has most likely ceased their operations as well. I can't confirm those, but I can confirm that EMS and the sheriff's office have shut down completely.
Tim, your thoughts on that?
That sounds about par for the course. I mean, you're not going to see fire and EMS going out in tropical storm, borderline hurricane conditions, risking their lives. It's just too dangerous for them to do that. So they're going to wait for the backside of the storm to get out of their area. Then they'll go out, assess whether it's safe or not to go out, check the roads, make sure there's not any power lines blocking the roadways, and then they'll start resuming their emergency services after that.
And I can confirm that the flash flood warning has been continued for the area until 4 o'clock for a certain area with all this rainfall we're getting. The Target store, which I work at, still planning on opening at 5 p.m. I believe that they're going to cancel that and stay shut down for the day. I have not heard an update in the last couple of hours, but at this point, I'm assuming that the store is going to be shut down. In the last 30 minutes, we've had 3 or 4 power flashes here with underground wires, so that's a little bit concerning there, but I know we still have power, which is a good thing.
Do you know the areas that might be getting the worst flooding right now?
Downtown Charleston, North Charleston, Allendale, probably up Northern County, where the surge is, probably up towards that Santee, McClellanville, Georgetown area. I know Georgetown, they shut down the main area of town. It's underwater completely right now. The street was flooded with about a foot of water. It looked like from images I saw, maybe 11:30.
Wow.
So it's probably worse by now.
Yeah.
I know downtown is completely underwater. The marketplace, which you've seen people kayak there in storms before. I know Reynolds Wolf is downtown. I don't know how he's faring down there. I haven't seen anything from the Weather Channel, but I'm assuming that he's underwater down there.
This is the view right now on the eastern side near Mount Pleasant. This is how it looks. It's looking on one of those roads, and you can see very blustery. I'm not seeing much flooding here, but you are starting to see leaf debris, and this camera's really rocking and rolling there with those strong winds. Unfortunately, we don't really have any of those cameras in the downtown area, and the ones that I can see are on the interstates, and they're quite elevated, aren't they? So you don't really see any flooding there. But this is the view on the east side of town. The camera's messing up a little bit at times, but...
Are you looking at the DOT cameras?
Yes.
So I want you to go to I-26 at the Ravenel Bridge in downtown, where they meet right there. There's a camera that is upside down.
Yes,
completely.
I saw that one. It was being rocked
I'm just seeing
around.
that,
It's
yeah.
all over the place, that camera.
That is by far horrendous. I mean, I just now noticed that it's horrible out there. I mean, if you look at the Ravenel Bridge images, you can't see the bridge. You can't see the diamonds anymore. You can't see the double diamonds, and it gets cloudy, it happens, but if it's like that, with rain, that is extremely terrifying.
Anything else you'd like to tell us right now whilst we've still got you?
I'm sheltering in place, doing the best I can. Just got power up right now, got running water, which is very thankful. Still thinking about those folks down in Florida, and we're taking the worst of it right now, and I think that it should be, hopefully it'll leave us soon, and you'll get started recovering. I mean, this is horrible. I wasn't here. I was born for Hugo, but my parents were here, and they said it was horrendous. My father was here during the storm, and it was horrendous, he says.
Yeah. Thanks very much for calling. We'll see if we can check back in with you later. Brian, stay safe and stay sheltered. Tim, any news on a potential landfall? It's looking increasingly messy. I can't work this out at all. There's potential centers that are... This could be a potential center, this could be a potential center, but this is probably the most likely center right now, which is right next to Georgetown Lighthouse. Do you think it's overland now?
Just looking at the past few frames, Nathan, yeah, Ian is definitely being a troll hurricane. It looks like it has been toying with Kane Island and started to make a jog to the east over the past couple frames.
No,
So right now,
I think it's turning back north again now, but it was earlier. From what I'm seeing, Tim, I think it might actually be overland right now. Again. Second time I've said this. Right next to Georgetown Lighthouse. On the Great PD River. But it's a tough call. You could argue that the more we're seeing this, it's maybe trying to form like this kind of thing. Could be sort of an eye, I don't know. But it's a mess. But Charleston getting a lot of rain. There's another heavy spell going on at this camera. You can look at it here. Look at that. That's getting really messed up in that area. Oh, almost lost the frame completely there. So, yeah, that camera's struggling. And I think we've just lost it there as well. So, that's Charleston, the east side of town. Let's see if we can cut back to the western side again and take a look at that camera that was showing flooding beginning in parts of western side of Charleston at the start of the I-526, but I can't get it to stream video at the moment, so I guess we'll pass on that one. But Brian there was also mentioning the I-26 in the middle of Charleston, and the camera that was faulty and that was flying around and upside down everywhere. I did see that camera earlier. I can't show that one right now either, unfortunately.
Yeah, just take a look at the recon, Nathan. The last four
Alright.
fixes that the recon has done had it going more of a northwesterly track on approach, and went from a northwest to a northward to a northeastward component as of their last fix.
God.
So maybe it is moving that northeastern component. I mean, it could be by Cane Island. It could be by Georgetown Lighthouse. Obviously, it's really hard to tell since its circulation's become less defined on radar the last few frames.
Hateful storm. And a summary of the warnings right now. A storm surge warning in effect for the Savannah River to Cape Fear, the Neuse River, and the St. Johns River. A hurricane warning in effect for Savannah River to Cape Fear. Tropical storm warning for the Altamaha Sound, Georgia to Savannah River, Cape Fear to Duck, and Pamlico Sound. Storm surge watch for north of Cape Fear to Duck, Pamlico River, and Cape Fear River. And hurricane watch for east of Cape Fear to Surf City, North Carolina. That's the latest right now. We heard about the conditions in South Carolina. Let's go back to that camera near Sunset Beach. And there it is again, showing you how deep that area is now in surge. There were marshes here earlier in the day. Let's just go back again. About 6 hours ago, it looked rather like this. You can see quite a lot of marshland there that was nowhere near the water line. Several feet. At least 6 feet, I would say. 5 or 6 feet. And 6 hours later, here it is now. Completely swamped with storm surge. This is Force 13 live. Let's get some questions. PWHSK, catchy name, says the storm structure resembles a giant mesocyclone somewhat, even with a hook echo-like shape, like you'd see in a supercell. Any thoughts on this? I mean, a hurricane is an enormous hook, really, isn't it?
I mean, yeah. I mean, when you count the outflow, it has that big classic comma shape to it.
It's how the world works.
And everything. Yeah.
Jacob wants us to look at models for the tropical wave out in Africa. We'll have a look shortly. We need to confirm landfall first, though, before we look at models again. Adderite says that recons seem to have indeed found a storm center teetering northeast as of the last pass. Gee. And whether we can find a camera of Myrtle's Beach. I had to look earlier and we can't find anything south of Myrtle Beach. And nothing else just now, but this is the latest view from Sunset Beach, and a few stronger winds blowing along the waters there as well. Hurricane Discussion says, looking at radar, it seems like the center is broadening out with many little circulations embedded within the larger one. And I agree. Absolutely agree with that. Oh man, I don't know what to make of this. Now the more you look at it, it looks like this is the eye. And it looks like a proper hurricane again on radar, and the eye center would be here. And I think that might actually be right now, because we're seeing all this rotation going on around here. And this is rotating. And this is definitely rotating. And maybe this area is rotating a little bit as well. We had that, probably a mesocyclone that was a center that's now moved into Georgetown as, I guess, a band. And this one here is trying to rotate on the outer edge. And that one there is trying to rotate. It's full of mesocyclones, I think, right now. It's a nightmare. But I think we've got the center there when we look at this radar here. And that would put the center right now further south. It would put the center to the southwest of McClellanville. Can't say that. McClellanville. If that's anything to go by. This has turned in an absolute nightmare to track. We've no idea which one is the true center. But when you look at the wider picture, it would look to me on radar as though the center is here, within here, somewhere around there. Let's just turn this radar off for a minute and see what satellite suggests. You can see some satellite imagery there, and that's really looking messy as well. You want to try and find rotations. You can see a rotation pulling in there, but where's it coming out? I can't see it coming out anywhere. But it's pulling in there, and that might suggest the center somewhere around here. And that keeps it very close to where we had it earlier on satellite imagery. But radar imagery would seem to suggest at this point that the storm center is quite a bit to the southwest. When you look at that at first take, then you're pretty sure that it must be within here, rather than the other position that we just marked on satellite, which is there. But radar is king over satellite, so I don't know how it's managed that, but I think somehow it's ended up here. Maybe it went into here first and has done a little loop, perhaps, to end up here, and then it might come out of it and head up that way. Maybe that's what's happened. Very, very hard to tell. Any thoughts on that, Tim?
I'm just as puzzled as you are, Nathan. We had the center pretty well figured out where it was, southwest of Georgetown, but as Ian has been on approach, it's really getting hard to pinpoint it down.
Impossible. Well, the center's definitely somewhere within there, and it's pretty much made landfall. NHC, the National Hurricane Center, have not called it a landfall yet. So I don't know what else I can tell you. Let's look at Myrtle Beach live right now. This is the view. It's getting quite windy there. Trees blowing around, the light poles rocking a little bit. Let's just see if we've still got that wide shot as well. We don't have that right now. We do have one, actually. Here's another view for Myrtle Beach. The waves crashing in towards shore, but you can't see much of the land area from that point of view. And there's a lovely ad, in case you wanted to see that. Dear. Back to the live shot at Sunset Beach, where very high waters increasing with that surge, at least 6 feet probably in this area. We wait for the National Hurricane Center to issue an update statement, or probably more likely now that they will wait for their intermediate advisory to declare landfall at 2 o'clock. Last time we saw, though, it was 85 miles per hour and a pressure of 980 millibars, which was, they determined that from a weather buoy, which was near the center of the storm. It got 981 millibars with, I think, a 20 mile an hour wind, or 25. And Recon supported 85 miles per hour. We'll get a update on that, on what they're reporting for a landfall intensity. I imagine it will still be very much the same, although Recon reported slightly deeper pressures. possibly down as low as 976. Oh, sorry, 977. And we've got, I think, another streaming webcam. I hope so. Some of them are going between streaming and not streaming right now, but we do have a... Oh. Yes, we do have a camera here at last. This is a view from Mount Pleasant on the eastern side of Charleston once again. Similar location to the one that we were looking at earlier. We're watching this location closely because we are concerned about flooding. Let's bring you the latest updates with regards to flash flooding right now. At 1:17 p.m, the public reported heavy rain across southeastern Georgetown County. Between 3 and 5 inches of rain have fallen. Additional rainfall amounts of 2 to 3 inches are possible in the warned area. Flash flooding ongoing or expected to begin shortly. No surprise there, being right in the middle of the storm. And south central Horry County until 3:15 p.m. Flash flood warning there. Berkeley County, Charleston and Dorchester until 4 p.m. A band of torrential rainfall from the Charleston airport along Interstate 26 to around Somerville. 4 to 6 inches of rain has been produced so far today. This band is expected to linger into the mid-afternoon, producing an additional 2 to 4 inches. Reports from the public indicate several roads from Goose Creek to Ladson were reported flooded. Flash flooding is ongoing or expected to begin shortly. So that's further north. We'll check that area out and see if we can see any significant flooding that's going on over there. So that's further north near the airport. And I'm just going to see what I can see on some of these cameras. If I spot anything interesting, I will put it on the main screen. What is that? That looks like flooding, but it's a still image. I can't tell. On the interstate. But a lot of water, no doubt. Whether it's actual flooding or not, I can't quite tell. And then Goose Creek, I think we've actually lost all cameras in Goose Creek. We had 3, and we've lost all of them. So that's bad news. So let's show you a viewpoint from near Goose Creek on Interstate 26. Here it is. Not the best video quality there, but an area that is receiving a lot of rain as well. Mile marker 208. Probably under that flash flood warning. Should be. Should also point out that high wind warnings have been issued for parts of Virginia, including downtown Norfolk. So high wind warnings issued there now, ahead of this storm and its influence. But where Tim is right now in Fayetteville, tropical storm warning. And what can you report from your place?
It's actually quite calm now, Nathan. Winds are probably 20 miles an hour at the surface. We actually had a few gusts earlier that were probably about 30 or 35 miles an hour. Rain has tapered off recently, so I think we are in between a couple of the rain bands once again. And just looking at some of the reports coming in, there are a ton of reports coming in across North Carolina. Most of these have been recently. 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts reported at the Johnston Regional Airport just south of Raleigh. 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts reported at the Clinton-Sampson County Airport. 41 being reported at the Harnett Regional Jet Airport. 55-mile-per-hour wind gusts reported at the Cumberland County Regional Airport. 37-mile-per-hour sustained wind with it, so that's borderline tropical storm. Wind gust of 50 miles per hour reported in Lumberton. 44 being reported at the McCall Army Airfield in Scotland. 40 being reported at the Richmond County Airport. And going further down into South Carolina, let me see if we can find some of the wind reports here. Not seeing too much for wind reports. The pier at Pawleys Island has completely collapsed due to Ian. We saw that pretty close to similar to what we saw down in Fort Myers. And okay, this was as of about 3-4 hours ago, but Mesonet reporting in Charleston a wind gust of 92 miles per hour.
Wow. Bloody hell.
Yep, that is right in Charleston Harbor, too.
Ike says significant storm surge flowing onto the beach in Myrtle Beach. We saw a video of that earlier. We'll bring one of those camera feeds back shortly. The one I'm looking for. And let's see if we can bring it. Look how windy it is at this location, by the way. Which is just north of Charleston as well. But near the airport. But let's see if we can look at, I think it's this camera. There's Myrtle Beach right now. And that surge will continue to increase for a little bit longer as this storm makes landfall to the west. Still a question of whether it has made landfall or not. I think it has, and I think it is getting clearer that that bigger eye that's clearing out is actually the landfall, is actually the center of the storm. But it is still right along the coast. NHC will probably declare landfall at the 2 p.m. advisory, and that will be happening fairly shortly. But that's your view for Myrtle Beach, looking out towards the northeast. So that's away from the storm, but you can still see all of that wave action, sometimes surging beyond the don't know if you want to call them dunes or little hills there, and towards the built up area. So substantial waves there, a distant pier that you can see over there that's getting harangued by a wave there right now. And an interesting view. Let's get some more comments. Toloco says this is a bad situation for coastal South Carolina. The rain band to the west dumped a ton of rain inland. They're at high tide and the storm surge is just going to squeeze all that water.
Nathan, we do have some news coming in from my location. Some locations now starting to lose power due to the tropical storm force winds impacting the city.
In Fayetteville?
Yes.
Oh dear. We might lose you then.
Let's hope not.
Check back this radar right now and you can see some of these areas around the eye. I mean, is it an eye? It probably isn't really a full eye, but it is an eye of sorts. And it looks like this little area here is probably the center. And if that's true, that means it is still right in the same place it was before. I give up with this. And that would put it right next to... I can't even remember where that is anymore. By my reckoning, the center of the storm should be over marshlands. I don't even think there's a name. There's a lighthouse there, actually. Don't know what lighthouse it is, but there's a lighthouse there.
Yeah, that would be the Cape Roman Lighthouse, basically Cape Island and the Cape Romaine National Wildlife Refuge. So we're basically looking at that same area we were looking at earlier, Nathan, with what we thought was the center of Ian.
Gee. So, what can we do? We're just continuing to look at all of this this visual. This is a very windy area here near Charleston Airport. Ike saying, when should the storm surge start receding in Myrtle Beach? After landfall. It could still go up slightly after landfall. But I'd reckon maybe, 3 hours, Tim? It might start to decrease.
It's going to take a little bit more than that. You figure storm surge is like a river flooding. It's going to have to crest, and then it'll start slowly receding.
Well, National Hurricane Center will update in a short while their 2 p.m. advisory. I'm sure they will declare a landfall at this point. I don't know if they might chicken out slightly and say is making rather than has made. But I think they'll say that it has made landfall. And we just lost that last camera as well. Here's another one, and this area does look very wet. Another view from the north part of Charleston along US 52, and you can see it's raining heavily here. So we're watching this storm enter slow motion. It feels it was moving very quickly towards the coast, and then it's hanging about right along the shoreline and giving everyone to run around and try and figure out whether it's making landfall or not. It might have done a tight loop, and it might have ended up just making a landfall again. I don't know. What we do know is that there is a lot of rain falling in the Charleston area and along Interstate 26, which is causing substantial flooding right now. Although we haven't seen very much of it on the road cams, we have been told by viewers and obviously flash flood warnings and the authorities suggesting that there have been significant flooding reports so far. And those are likely to increase for a little while throughout this afternoon.
Yeah, we do have some of those numbers in for some of the storm totals, Nathan. Charleston itself, as of 7:45 this morning, has, and depending what part of Charleston you look at, some have gotten a little under 6 inches up to almost 7 and 8, but the further south into Charleston proper you go. Folly Beach has accrued 9 1/4. Sullivan's Island on the east side of Charleston, 5 1/2. Isle of Palms, 5.2 inches. Carolina Bay, about 5 1/3. Kiowa Island, southwest of Charleston, has had 4 inches. And then we got a few areas further inland up towards Ladson, about 5.7 inches. Lincolnville, about almost 5. Somerville, almost 5. Ridgeville, 3 1/2 inches. So a lot of these areas are really getting hammered with that heavy rain. Not as much rain as we saw down in Florida, Nathan, but still a very considerable amount for this area.
We're now joined by Patrick. Welcome back to the stream. What are your thoughts about whether the storm has made landfall or not?
I don't think the storm has made landfall, but however, I actually am going to break in and say that we most likely have a very strong waterspout just to the south of Emerald Isle, southeast Emerald Isle. There's a very, very strong couplet down there, and I would not be surprised if a waterspout is down there in that region on that special marine warning. There's definitely a waterspout down. There's definitely a waterspout down by Velocity. There's no doubt in my mind.
Oh, wow. Yeah, just taking a look at what Patrick's alluding to. Yeah, this is definitely a very strong couplet, Nathan. Gate to gate would suggest 120 miles per hour. So
Did you say 120?
That's what I'm getting, yeah.
Holy moly.
Is that way east?
So,
is
yeah. It's over water right now, but if I am in
Is it
Emerald
the special
Isle,
marine warning, is it? that one.
I
Yes, it is.
actually got 170 gate to gate between two neighboring pixels, which would suggest that we have a very strong circulation over the water right now, which is most likely producing a water spout, potentially even a strong one. So, if this thing maintains itself as it goes on the shore, I mean, it is a little bit of ways out from the shore. It's about, if it maintains itself for about good 10 miles, to be honest, we might get a tornado warning on Might.
This is moving very quick, Patrick. Just looking at that special marine warning, this is moving at 45 knots over the water.
Which would
So,
be 5 miles
if
an
you
hour.
are in Indian Beach, Emerald Isle, you guys have about 10 minutes before this is going to be on you, and this is a pretty prominent couplet.
Well, I do have some somewhat good news. The couplet appears to be it's still there, but it appears to be occluding or weakening. But very, very decent structure though. So I would not be surprised if they put a tornado warning on it. And Tim, do you notice that streak coming from the near the hook off the reflectivity? Do you notice that? What's going on there?
Let me take a look.
Looks like a yeah, we might have a triple body scatter spike ongoing with that
What the hell is one of those?
basically where a storm is so strong, it basically produces an echo on radar in the form of like a streak coming off the radar, off the storm. So could be a TBSS, but this thing has no hail, so it probably isn't, but definitely the storm is very powerful. And couplet is still very decent. So if you are in Emerald Isle, Indian Beach, if you're in those general areas, I would consider getting to your shelter place here, as this is about maybe 5 to 10 minutes away from the coast. And if this thing
Actually,
maintains,
Nathan, if you stop your radar, you can actually point out the actual part of the cell on your radar.
Yeah.
Because it's actually separated from the actual part of the storm there.
which is probably due to radar proximity, though, so it could actually be with the storm. However, it is so close to the Newport radar that it's making it look like it's a separate part, but still very impressive presentation.
Yep, it is that area that Nathan has circled there. That is the water spout that is moving onshore towards Emerald Isle. You guys have probably about 10 to 12 minutes to be getting to shelter before this comes on shore and becomes an actual full-blown tornado warning.
Update on gate to gate. We're looking at about 110 miles an hour on the delta velocity. Excuse me, so we're looking at about 130 gate to gate with about 110 to 140 delta velocity, which is insane. And we might get a tornado warning here shortly. There is also another storm that I'm actually really concerned about as well that could move on shore. Tim, do you see that to the way southeast? Do you see that little hook echo right there? That little curvature right there? It's going to be